I could start this video by listing all the areas of philosophy that Aristotle's work has shaped, or the many sciences to which he contributed or even founded, but I think there's an even more vivid way of expressing Aristotle's immense influence on history. For well over a millennium after Aristotle died, he was referred to in the literature as the philosopher, with a capital P. His name was synonymous with his whole field of endeavor. This is a level of dominance that is unthinkable today. Could you imagine there being an author so great we just called them the writer because it was so obvious to everyone that their work was unmatched? Or imagine saying that you were going to the dentist, and you didn't mean a dentist, or your dentist, but the one single dentist so much better than all others that they don't need to be referred to by name. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But this was Aristotle. His work had such an obvious genius that medieval Christianity, not exactly known for its tolerance of paganism, made it their great philosophical project to interpret his thinking in ways that was consistent with Christian doctrine. And he accomplished all of this despite the fact that the great majority of his writing has been lost to history, including everything that he prepared for publication. So all that Aristotle accomplished, he achieved with his rough drafts and notes. It's impossible to cover it all, so we're going to focus on his contributions to three major areas of philosophy: ethics, politics, and metaphysics. Aristotle, in contrast to his teacher Plato, and his teacher's teacher Socrates, was less interested in purely theoretical questions like, what is virtue, and more interested in strategic questions like, how do I become virtuous? To be truly virtuous means to have a disposition to act virtuously for its own sake, not to avoid punishment or get rewards or to appear to others in a certain light. So if two people donate the same amount of money to the same charity, but one person did it because they found this act desirable in itself, and the other person did it so they could post about it on social media, then only the first person would be virtuous. Aristotle writes that every virtue is a mean between two extremes. For instance, bravery is a virtue. Having too little, cowardice, is a deficiency. Having too much, recklessness, is an excess. A soldier is lacking in virtue if they run away, but also if they break ranks and charge before they're ordered to. Their unit loses one soldier either way. To become virtuous, Aristotle doesn't think we should aim straight for the mean. He thinks we should examine our nature, and if we are especially inclined to one extreme or the other, we should compensate for this by aiming a little to the opposite side. Like an archer who always pulls her shot one way, we'll best learn to hit the target by being aware of our own tendencies. So someone inclined to cowardice should err on the side of recklessness, but someone who is naturally reckless should err on the side of caution, at least until they can consistently hit the target. Only by habituating ourselves to act virtuously can we approach the highest goal of ethics, eudaimonia. A notoriously hard word to translate, it's usually rendered happiness, but with shades of flourishing, living well, and living according to our highest purposes. The point of politics is to foster a state in which its members have the best chance of cultivating this eudaimonia. To this end, Aristotle asks who should rule. Mathematically, you can break every option into one of three choices. The state can be ruled by one person, by a subset of its members, or by everyone. And because the ruling party can either govern with an aim to the common good or for their own personal benefit, this gives us 6 forms of rule, which Aristotle calls constitutions. Aristotle's ranking of these constitutions has interesting nuance. He thinks that, at least in theory, rule by a single individual has the highest potential, and that this is the only way for a state to be ruled by the best elements within it. It's strange to talk about better or worse people in our egalitarian age, but it makes sense if we think of political rule as a specific skill. Adding more captains to a ship won't help it navigate more safely if these extra captains are worse than the first. So too, Aristotle reasons, adding less informed, less intelligent, less self-disciplined, and less virtuous rulers will only make a state worse. However, Aristotle also says that rule by a single individual for their own benefit is the worst form of government. Here their power is unchecked, and so tyranny is the most dangerous constitution. So if we start from the premise that political power will be used for self-interested reasons and not with a view to the common good, then democracy becomes the best constitution, because the damage caused by the selfish use of political power is somewhat balanced by the fact that everyone is using it against everyone else. According to Aristotle, everything we observe in nature is in some way in motion. Motion is Aristotle's word for being in a process of change. So a snowball rolling down a hill or a bird in flight are in motion, but so too is a stationary tree passing through its life cycle, or a stone imperceptibly eroding on the shore. Every motion we observe in nature has a prior cause. A leaf swirling in the air is blown by the wind, a wolf on the hunt is moved by the food it has consumed, and so on. But Aristotle says that all these motions must have a first cause, a cause that is not caused by something else. Otherwise we would have an infinite regress, an unending chain of causes which would lead to the contradiction that we have reached the present link on the chain of causality, despite having gone through infinite links to get here. All motion must therefore have a first cause, which requires nothing outside of itself. Aristotle calls this first cause an unmoved mover. It sets other things in motion, but is not set in motion by anything outside of it. Not only Christian philosophers, but Jewish and Islamic ones as well, found Aristotle's notion of the unmoved mover resonant with their own conception of God. Ethics, politics, metaphysics, and its effect on many of the world's major religions, this only scratches the surface of Aristotle's influence. But the outro is coming, so let me quickly say that he's also been called the father of biology, zoology, embryology, logic, political science, rhetoric, psychology, and meteorology. This has been Flash Philosophy. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And most of all, Thank you for watching.